Hi everyone, welcome back to the Holy and Hormonal podcast. My name is Kim Gargano. If you're new here, I created this podcast as a safe space for us to approach periods and our hormones from a Christian perspective. I'm also currently getting certified to become a holistic, integrative nutrition and hormone health coach. So I'm excited to add that to my little intro. If you guys have been listening for a long time, you could probably recite my intro lines by heart now. Today's episode is going to be all about why do I become the worst version of myself on my period? I know that this is something that you guys can relate to because I feel it every single month. It's like when the luteal phase comes around again, I'm like shocked at how I act and how I process things. And I'm like, it's almost as if this happens every single month of my life for the past 10, 12 years. Why am I so surprised every single time it happens? But also, why do I become the worst version of myself? Like, what's actually going on behind the scenes with my period that's causing me to become someone that I don't even like being around? So with that being said, let's just jump into prayer. Lord Jesus, thank you for today. Thank you for waking us up another day. Lord, you're so good. I thank you for the way that you created the body, Father. You're so creative and masterful, and you create all these things to work together. I thank you that you give us wisdom and knowledge to learn about all of your creation. And I pray that everything that I say today in this episode is from you and of you and reflects your heart for your daughters. And I just thank you for today. I pray this all in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Okay, so if you guys listened to not the last episode, but the one before that, we talked about the science of how your period actually works. So to get a little bit more foundational understanding for this episode, I would encourage you to listen to that one if you haven't already, because that's going to go through like the whole process of what's going on in your body with your hormones and what's the follicular phase and what are all these hormones that are surging to release an egg? What are you talking about? So go listen to that episode really quickly. I also have in season 1, I believe it's episode 2, Menstrual Cycle 101. That's also a good one to listen to because I literally go through every single phase. Day 1 to day 5, here's what's going on in your body. Day 5 to day 14, here's what's going on in your body. That's also a great reference point there. But let's talk about the luteal phase specifically today, because this is the time period, which is like basically the 2 weeks before you actually start bleeding, that things tend to go south. They get a little haywire, they get a little crazy. And it's not by coincidence, it's biological and it happens and there's ways to control it. But let's just talk about what the luteal phase actually is. So the luteal phase, like I said, is the 2 weeks before your period. It normally lasts anywhere from like 12 to 14 days, depending on what your cycle length is. What's happening in your body at this time is estrogen is starting to dip a little bit. Progesterone is starting to rise. And progesterone is the hormone that balances out the effects of estrogen. You could think of progesterone as like the chill girl. She's the one that's coming in to make sure that you feel relaxed. Progesterone also has very calming effects on the mind and on your mood. And it kind of acts as the stabilizer and the counterpart to estrogen, which is like, you could say she's like the hype girl. She's going to keep you motivated, feeling confident, feeling super good. Estrogen is the hormone that's going to help make you feel more social, more creative, more confident. She's going to make you feel like a hot girl. But when there's too much estrogen left in the bloodstream, when you cross ovulation, so that's when that egg gets released into the fallopian tubes, it's sitting in the uterus, it's waiting for the implant, it's waiting for the fertilization of sperm to be implanted into the uterine lining. And then that creates pregnancy. If it does not implant or it never gets fertilized by sperm, then we enter the luteal phase. It takes your body a few days for it to figure out whether or not that egg implanted and if you're pregnant or not. So what progesterone does is it surges from what's called the corpus luteum, which is basically the little follicle thing that held that egg before it turned into the corpus luteum, which produces progesterone. And progesterone is going to make sure that your endometrium, that uterine lining, stays thick and habitual and hospitable for a baby to be made and for it to thrive and get all the nutrients that it needs. Progesterone is super important for getting pregnant and staying pregnant and delivering a baby to term. Now, what happens when there's excess estrogen and not enough progesterone to balance it out? This is what's known as estrogen dominance, and this leads to a lot of those PMS symptoms. So like your cramps, your mood swings, your irritability, super sore breasts, painful periods, migraines. Need I go on about the list that PMS causes women? You're familiar with it all. So what's super important in the luteal phase is to balance out estrogen and help your liver detox that excess estrogen. So that's going to look like a lot of raw carrot salads. Carrots are wonderful for helping detox estrogen from your body. And something that I do, because I naturally have a fatty liver, which I realized through this whole cancer scare thing, the doctor was like, you have a fatty liver. I was like, great, what does that mean? I don't even know. I take daily milk thistle supplements, which are basically just liver support. So it helps your liver clear things out, do its job more efficiently. So I take a liver support because I do know that I tend to struggle a little bit with estrogen dominance. And I also have a fatty liver, so it just makes sense for me to take a liver supplement. If you're interested in knowing which one that I get it from Amazon. I think it's a white bottle with like purple, and it has a little picture of a little plant in front of it, and it's organic milk thistle. I can put the link in the description below if you want to also take it and check it out. So these are just two things that you could do to help your liver detox excess estrogen. The other thing you could also do is just exercise. I know it sounds a little redundant and a little obvious as like exercise is good for you, but it's actually really good for helping your body eliminate all the things that's just floating in the bloodstream. It's going to help with the insulin resistance as well. If you're a girly with PCOS, this is something that you might want to focus on too. So now that we talked about the science of what's going on in the luteal phase, let's talk about the reality that we feel. The reality is that in the luteal phase, after that estrogen surges, progesterone rises, they both start crashing simultaneously, and that is where things really start to go not great. So that's like the 5 days before you actually get your period. For me personally, I feel a slew of symptoms, but there's always like one day in my luteal phase where I need to take like a 4-hour nap. It happens every single cycle, and it just always comes out of nowhere. I just wake up and I'm like, oh, today's not my day. I'm supposed to be sleeping all day long. And that makes total sense because your body is literally preparing for pregnancy. And if you're not pregnant, your body is doing so much to shed that uterine lining. Like, you have to understand how much work your body is doing for you. When you're in your luteal phase, you should be eating 250 more calories on average because of the calorie expenditure your body is going through to literally have a period. So if you're not eating and meeting those caloric needs, your blood sugar goes up, your cortisol goes up. There's a whole other slew of things that can happen if we're not giving our body the caloric intake it needs. So that's a little fun fact. If you ever feel more hungry before your period, there's a reason for that. So don't gaslight yourself into thinking that you shouldn't be eating as much, because I get ravenous before my period. But I know that it's because my body is asking for more, because it needs more in order for me to stay at homeostasis. So because estrogen and progesterone are super low, these hormones are not giving you really anything. They're telling you to slow down because they don't have the capacity to handle a lot of things, and definitely not a lot of stress. Naturally, when you are in the luteal phase, your body is more susceptible to stress because it's doing so much in your womb. It's going to be on high alert to make sure that like nothing happens to your uterus if your body thinks that you're pregnant. So that just means that your stress threshold is way lower. If you feel like you're more irritable, more stressed out, more like on edge before your period, that makes perfect sense because those hormones are super low, and also just because your immune system is on higher alert, and it may make you feel a little more anxious. Very common, nothing to be afraid of. So yeah, if you're feeling more hungry, more irritable, there's literally the science to prove those reasons why. And because your hormones are so low, it's only natural that you're gonna feel crummy and not at your best when you're in this period of your cycle. And it's not anything to feel ashamed of or to resent or feel like you're working against it, because it's God's invitation for us to slow down and to clean house and to like kind of look around and be like, how can I clean out the clutter in my heart, in my mind, in my body? Like, what do I need to work on? What do I need to reflect on? What are some things that I need to change? It is the Lord's invitation asking you to rest. The problem we run into is when we try to run in this phase instead of rest, because you're just not capable of handling it. So you might be forcing yourself to get up extra early for a workout class that you know is too taxing on your body and you don't even know why you showed up to it in the first place. Or you're training for a marathon, or you're staying up 3 hours later till 2 a.m. to get your work done before the next day. You're forcing your body to do things it naturally is begging you to take a break from. This is where that why do I feel like the worst version of myself on my period comes in, because it's like you're working against your hormones and not with your hormones. You're actively fighting against the rhythm that your body wants to follow, and you're trying to put a round peg in a square hole. And I understand that not all life circumstances can allow you to move with your cycle in this type of like harmonious way. Maybe you're a single mom who works 2 jobs, who loves a kid. Maybe that's you. Or maybe you're a college student or a medical student or a nursing student, or maybe you have to work a night shift. I don't know what the situation is for you, so I'm not being insensitive to the fact that like sometimes life just doesn't happen that way. But what I am suggesting is for you to honor the awareness of where you're at in your body and do your sustainable best to give it what it needs when it's asking for it. Sometimes just knowing where you're at in your cycle helps alleviate a lot of stress and pressure that you might put on yourself to perform a certain way, to be a certain way, to put on a show or to show up for yourself in ways that are just so exhausting. Sometimes just giving yourself the awareness and the permission to be where you're at and to be still and know that God is good and that he's fighting your battles for you, sometimes that is healing in and of itself. Now, when it comes to the faith element of being in your luteal phase, no one relates more to this than me, because I really struggle with my faith when I'm about to get my period. It's like any minor inconvenience, I forget about the goodness of God. Or like I actively like reject the goodness of God. I don't want to sit with him. I don't want to pray. I don't want to meditate on the word. I don't want to be encouraged. I don't want to go to Sunday service. Like I sometimes have to drag myself to these things to break through that thought process of I'm not feeling good, so I'm just going to sit here and lick my own wounds because it's comfortable and because it's what I know. And I oddly have like this traumatic relationship with feeling sad. Sometimes I feel a lot of comfort in feeling sad because I spent a lot of my life being sad. So it's like a comforting feeling. It is so toxic and so twisted, and I'm working through it. And when I get back into therapy, which should be like any day now, I know that my thought process about it is not really the best. But maybe you can relate to that too. Maybe you're like, wow, I never thought about it that way, how like I kind of prefer to be sad. Or when you are like in an emotional state of mind and you just play sad music to make yourself feel more sad. Like, why do we do that? I think it's a comfort thing, but I also know that the enemy is going to use that to his advantage to keep you bonded and to keep you in that state of depression. So we have to be very careful at what we allow ourselves to do because of grace and the grace that God gives us, but not leaving the door open wide enough or long enough for the enemy to slip in and start using our moments of rest against us as guilt or as shame or as manipulation or gaslighting to yourself. That window is very, very, very slim, and it's a very fine line you have to walk, but that's why Jesus is there to help us through it all. When I'm about to get my period, I want to hear nothing about the Lord. It's almost like it bothers me, and I don't understand. And I know that like there's the science behind it, and I understand what's going on in our bodies, what's going on in our brains during this time, but it's still a mystery to me how I feel like I just want nothing to do with faith when I'm about to get my period, and how it's so hard for me to have steadfast love for the people around me, to have patience. It is so hard. And I wish that I had a direct answer for you to help you break through all this. I don't, because I'm still figuring it out. And I think I will always continue to figure it out, because it's one thing for me to sit here as I'm in my follicular phase. Everything's going so well. The sun is out. I'm feeling really energized and like beautiful and confident. But the second I hit the luteal phase, I'm like, yeah, whatever she said, throw it out the window, because I don't want to listen to it. I think it's just a unique struggle that we have as women that we're going to continue to struggle with on this side of creation. But the thing is that we don't have to struggle alone, and that we don't have to be isolated in our pain and our frustration. We have community. We have other women around us who can help carry our burdens with us. There are people that you can talk to and pray with. And even like if you need medical help in these situations, go to therapy. Go get evaluated by a psychiatrist. Like, go to a naturopathic endocrine doctor. Go seek out the resources you need if you really feel like what you're struggling with in this phase is really not normal. Like if it's debilitating, or if you're feeling suicidal thoughts, or things just feel so dark that in the back of your head you're like, I know that I need help with this, please go get it checked out. Please, I'm begging you. But for the rest of you that are like, this happens every once in a while, you know, like my luteal phase comes around and I always feel this way, or I always feel more irritable, or my threshold for patience is super low, I get triggered very easily, like loud noises really frustrate me, which, by the way, I learned this recently, that a symptom of PMDD is being super sensitive to noise. And I always thought that, like, I'm going to be so honest, I literally thought that like I might like have some sort of like autism spectrum disorder, because noises really bother me. Like background noises, or just like, I hate repetition. I can't stand when noises are repeating. Like if the alarm on the microwave is beeping for too long, I will literally like twitch. Like I can't do it. But I found out that this is a symptom of PMDD, which I know that I have. So I don't know why I shared that. Fun fact about me. Hello, I'm sensitive to noises. Anyway, I'm done with my little tangent there. I get very irritable in my luteal phase, and it's really hard for me to want to connect with the Lord. It's really hard for me to take advice in this time period too. Like if my husband comes home and I just need to vent and he like presents me a solution for my problem, I will get so upset. I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I don't want to be told what to do. I don't want to be like told to think about this from a different angle. I just want to vent and be angry and just like have an outlet for my energy to go towards. So that brings me to my next piece of advice, is workout is super important. Like working out and having exercise in the luteal phase, as much as you won't want to move your body and you will want to sleep and just rest and do nothing, movement releases neurotransmitters, those endorphins and serotonin. Movement helps your body release that stuff. And it's also a great outlet for releasing frustration. The last time I was in my luteal phase, I was doing a Pilates workout and I started bawling my eyes out in the middle of my workout. And then it hit me of like, oh, I needed to just release emotions. Like there's stuff being stored in my muscles and in my body that needs to be released. And if I had just like sat around, I would feel like I need to crawl out of my own skin. Like that feeling of like you just want to unzip yourself and step out of it and run. I don't know if anyone can relate to that feeling, but I surely can. Working out in my luteal phase really helps me release that feeling of like being stuck or feeling, I don't know, just like anxious. Like it really is a good outlet to release that energy, and then for your body to help create those happy hormones, the ones that make you feel good, make you feel reward. So that's another tip I have for you. And then the obvious one is to pray. And I know that it's so annoying to hear that piece of advice, because you might be listening to this podcast to hear alternative solutions for like, how do I manage my PMS and why do I feel this way? What can I do to get rid of it? Prayer and literally having a good cry in the presence of the Lord is the most healing thing that you can do. It's in the days where I don't want to go to church or I just don't feel like opening my word that I release the most emotion and feel the most connected to the Lord. Like this past Sunday, I'm going to be really vulnerable and honest with you guys. I tried on a pair of jeans that I wore last spring and they were really tight on me and it sent me into a spiral. And I was just looking at my husband, and we had 5 minutes left for me to get ready, and we had to go to church. And I just looked at him and I was like, I am so upset and so angry right now. Like, I'm not going to church. Like, I feel so ugly. I feel fat. I feel disgusting. Like, you know, like I was just on the verge of tears and also about to scream. And I just really had a hard time. And of course my husband did what all men do, and he was like, baby, like, you're so beautiful, like, you look amazing, like, seriously, like, you look incredible, like, I understand that you're sad, but like, I love you so much just the way you are, and this has nothing to do with your worth or how you should see yourself. And I was like, please shut up. Like, actually shut up. Like, I do not want to hear it. I do not want to hear your compliments. Just like, actually leave, because I want to punch you in the face right now. And it's so like annoying of me, because like, why would that be my reaction when my sweet loving husband is just trying to encourage me? But I was just like, reject. Okay, nope. I'm going to sit here in my wounds and I'm going to pour salt in them. And it was really hard for me, and I had no desire to go to church. So I changed into a different pair of pants that I knew fit me, and I sulked all the way to church. And in that church service, 47 people got up to give their life to Jesus. And it was one of the most powerful and emotional and beautiful services we have ever had, or that I've ever had at this church where we're going to on Staten Island. And I was in tears the whole entire time. I felt wrecked by the love of God. And just seeing all these people, young, old, families, daughters, sons, kids that are like literally 12 years old, walking up to the altar and giving their life to Jesus, it made all of my problems go away. It seriously did. I was like, why am I sitting here crying about my pant size when we are in the presence of the Lord and there are people who are feeling the love of God for the first time in their life? Like, how selfish am I? How insignificant does it feel now crying about my pant size when I just witnessed the love of God touch half of this room? And it really put things into perspective for me. And so the annoying advice of just pray about it and just let God into it and surrender, I'm going to keep saying it because it works every single time. Every single time, without fail. The Lord will meet you where you're at, and he will help you and guide you. Now, aside from all those recommendations, obviously we know that diet, lifestyle, supplements, and exercise can help with PMS. I have a ton of episodes about this, about how to balance your hormones, how to use food as medicine and lifestyle as medicine. And there's going to be more episodes about that coming up in the future. So stay tuned for those. But I just want to give you the invitation to just be where you're at right now and to just honor where you're at. Being a woman is difficult. There's no way to sugarcoat that. You can honor your body by also saying that, like, sometimes there's hard days, and the hard days feel so hard that it feels like there's no way to climb out of it. But just know that it passes. Like, these things pass. They're temporary. The luteal phase is temporary. It's only a short amount of time in the grand scheme of things. And then your period comes, your period goes, the follicular phase starts, and you feel amazing again. So just know that when you're going through the thick of it, brighter days are coming, and that the joy of the Lord is new every single day. His mercies are new every morning. Sometimes you just need a good night's sleep. If you're having a bad day, you can have a bad day. It's okay. Go have your bad day. The second you hit your head on the pillow, get excited that you're not going to feel that way tomorrow. At least in that way, in that intensity, in that form. You might still feel not great, but joy truly comes in the morning. Getting a good night's sleep, it does so much for your health. It is so underrated and not talked about enough what just a good cry and a good night's sleep can do for you. And I want to invite you to look at your period and your luteal phase as God's invitation to rest and slow down. Because I think when we start honoring our bodies in the rhythm that he created them to operate, we find that we're struggling so much less because we're not going against God's design. We're not moving against the grain. It's not like we're trying to run up a down escalator. We're now hopping on the escalator that goes up and we're walking up it with it. That's what it feels like to move with your hormones versus without them. And to the people who I was addressing before, like maybe you're the single mom who works 2 jobs, or you're a busy college student, or you work an overnight shift, try to find 5 minutes throughout your day. 5 minutes to just stop and to just breathe. Literally just breathe. Breathing has so much healing power in it. Go inhale for 4 counts. hold for 7, exhale for 8. Do that for a total of 30 seconds to a minute, and I promise you, it's going to help you feel so much more grounded, so much less stressed and anxious. And if you want, while you're breathing, recite scripture or play worship music on your phone or sway side to side. Get on your knees in your work closet, in the bathroom, hit your knees and just say, God, I got to give this to you because I can't do this on my own. You have to give me joy. That's what I love about God is like, there's a scripture, I can't remember where it is right now. I think it's in Psalms, where David says like, restore to me the joy of my salvation. The prayer is, God, restore to me the joy of my salvation. He's asking the Lord to give him joy. He's not trying to conjure up joy by himself because he knows that he can't do it in his own strength. It's like, God, I'm asking you to give me joy. I'm asking you to give me peace because I have none. And Jesus says, as long as you remain in me and I in you, you will bear fruit. What are the fruits of the Spirit? Joy, love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. If we are asking the Lord for those things, surely he will give them to us. That's kind of all I have for this episode. I hope that you feel a little bit more seen and understood and less crazy. That's literally been my main prayer of this podcast and this ministry, is that I just want you to feel less alone and like less psychotic for feeling the things that you do, because there's a reason for it. Biologically, there's a lot of things happening in your body, and I just want to encourage you to move with your hormones and not against them. I hope that you learned something new. I hope that you feel a little bit more peace. Maybe there was something I said that you're going to adapt into your week as a spiritual practice. Maybe it's that breathing technique, in for 4 counts, hold for 7, release for 8. Or it's exercising a little bit more in the luteal phase. Maybe you're going to eat a raw carrot salad every day in your luteal phase to help flush out that excess estrogen. Maybe you're going to take that milk thistle supplement, whatever it is for you. I pray that you just learned something new and that maybe you got some answers to something. And if the answer to your prayer is that you just feel less alone, then I'm so happy that you tuned into this episode. You guys can find me on Instagram at holyandhormonalpodcast. I don't really ask you guys for a lot. I would really love it if you guys would rate this podcast 5 stars. If you are loving it, if you could share it with a friend, with a family member, with a coworker, someone in your church, in your small groups. The best way to help support my ministry is just to share it with people and to rate it 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to. If you're watching on YouTube, if you could subscribe, it really just helps push the episodes out more to people, to make it more visible on search engines and things like that. This is a very small but mighty podcast, and I know that the Lord is going to do amazing things with it. But I just want women to really just know that they're not alone, that they're so loved by God and by me, because obviously this is why I'm doing all this stuff. So if you could share it, that would be awesome. That is all I have for this week. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys next Thursday.